that Afghanistan has always been in conflict. Last 2000 years, I don't think they've seen peace at all. So you have Pashtuns in Pakistan, Pashtuns in Afghanistan, who have been Pashtuns for 2000, 3000 years. And Pakistanis or Afghanis for the last 50, 60, 70 years. So this idea of the Durand line means nothing to them. The Taliban nexus in the ISI is now inherent within it.
Can't help it.
You can't help it. And this society is linked to the issues of the Taliban. At Pakistan, their dream is how do we screw India. So they will get into anything if they feel somewhere along the line India loses. The Chinese are clear that without Pakistan help, they cannot move this BRI forward in Afghanistan.
Jai Hind, welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi Achint. I have with me Lt Gen Shokin Chauhan, who's going to talk to us about a very interesting outpouring event that we see around us, the relationship between Pakistan and Taliban. Everybody says one is in bed with the other. No one knows who's winning in this entire thing. I will try and coax General Shokin to tell us what is the story behind this relationship. Lt Gen Shokin Chauhan, PVSM, AVSM, YSM, SM, VSM. He was commissioned into the Indian Army in the 11th Gorkha Rifles in December 1979. During the course of his service in multiple different regions of this country, he's commanded 1 Corps, 70th Mountain Brigade, and many other formations. The general has vast experience in conduct of counter-terrorist operations both in the Kashmir Valley as well as the Northeast, and was the director of the Assam Rifles, India's oldest and largest paramilitary force. He was selected as the chairman of the ceasefire monitoring group in the Northeast in 2018 August. He was recently awarded a PhD degree from the University of Punjab on India-Nepal relations, and now is a visiting fellow for the Center of Joint Warfare Studies. Thank you, sir, for joining me for this discussion.
Pleasure. Thank you, Adi, for calling me. And I look forward to discussing this with you. It's a very important subject, Taliban, Pakistan, Afghanistan, the US, and now China. It's evolving very quickly.
Yes.
Really very quickly. And I never thought that China would get into bed so quickly with the Americans leaving. But that's something we can talk about. It's very interesting. Things are very interesting right now.
Yes. So as a matter of fact, as you said, you kind of spoken the punchline, which says that things are evolving very quickly. There's a huge amount of information which has been put out there from both the sides for their own motives. One sees videos which are about 6-8 years old and this and that. So there's a bit of organization in this chaos that one can see. But just taking a step back, sir, we all know Pakistan and Taliban have a very strong relationship. What I'd like to know is, one, how far does the Pakistan deep state are able to control the Taliban in terms of their rule, their war efforts, their foreign relations, so on and so forth? And what is the actual aim of Pakistan by doing such activities?
Very interesting, Adi. It's very funny, actually. This whole conundrum of the stories about Afghanistan. Afghanistan has been in the center of a crisis or a critical point of Asia, on the top of the world, since it started being Afghanistan. If you remember, it was Alexander the Great that crossed these passes, crossed Afghanistan and came towards India. After that, you had a whole lot of hordes and hordes of empires trying to increase their space in the world by coming either across to India or to China, because Afghanistan is in the crossroads of history, and because of its location, it is blighted by the fact that it has always been in conflict. So that's the first thing you have to realize about Afghanistan, that Afghanistan has always been in conflict. Last 2000 years, I don't think they've seen peace at all. Second thing is that it's largely a tribal society. That's the second issue about Afghanistan. There's an old saying, you must have heard that they've been Pashtuns for 5,000 years and Afghans for only the last 100 odd years. Right? And if you take this analogy further, because there are Pashtuns in Pakistan, so you have Pashtuns in Pakistan, Pashtuns in Afghanistan, who have been Pashtuns for 2,000, 3,000 years. And Pakistanis or Afghanis for the last 50, 60, 70 years. So this idea of the Durand line means nothing to them. There are no permanent fixtures around the Durand line. There are no fences like we have created the fence along the Indo-Pak border. There is nothing like that. And the Pashtuns cross over. There's a lot of intermarriage. So culturally, the Pashtun on both sides are very close to each other. Now, what are the Talibs or the Taliban? Initially, when the Soviets came into Afghanistan, you had a very funny situation where a large part of Afghans' population crossed over into refugee camps in Pakistan. So while they were in Pakistan, they had to be taught, they had to be educated. So there were a lot of mosques created, there were a lot of madrasas created, and the students who went to these madrasas were called Talibs, the students. So the word Taliban has come from the word student, the Talib. And they created this army of students to enter Afghanistan ruled by the Soviets, to continuously create a problem for the Soviets. I wonder if you heard this recent interview by an ex-ISI chief, Hamid Gul, where he said we used the ISI and the Taliban to defeat the Soviets. The Soviets first.
Yeah.
And now we're using the same, we're using America to defeat America with the same people again. Okay. So, there are 3-4 things, Adi, which seem to me as not in sync. Why is America leaving? That's the first issue we should be asking ourselves. Were they losing in any manner? I think not. I don't think they were losing anywhere. It's just that they said, well, 20 years is a long time, and maybe we should go back. They were not really shedding blood. The Taliban, the Afghanistan Taliban or the ISI had not really, the Afghanistan situation had more or less, softened down to a point at which it was an acceptable level of violence in a place like Afghanistan. So why are they leaving? Was it because Trump gave a particular date and when Biden came in, he said, okay, I abide by that date? Or do they have something else in their mind? That's the issue to be seen. Maybe they've got tired of the war. So that's the state at which we are looking at. Firstly, Afghanistan is at the crossroads of history, a crossroads towards India and China, two huge civilizations which other empires eastward or in Europe or Central Asia have always sort of looked at these two large countries. The second thing is they are largely tribal, largely Pashtuns. And each tribal society has weapons of their own. So, you have a weaponized tribal society. You have roads that are not good enough. So what are you going to rule? Pakistan's in bed with them, but Pakistan also has a problem with their own insurgent groups, like the Tehrik-e-Pakistan, the TTP. The Tehrik-e-Afghanistan or the Tehrik-e-Taliban, which is in Afghanistan, is in link with them. Tomorrow, if you think that Pakistan will go unscathed if the Taliban Afghanistan faction becomes the ruler, they're very mistaken. This movement will definitely spread into Pakistan. It will definitely make them more radical. And I would say if Taliban takes over, it's a matter of 10 to 12 years or 15 years when Pakistan also falls civil. So I would be very, very skeptical if I was a Pakistani about supporting the Taliban.
Why are they doing it, sir?
Well, at the time, 20, 30 years ago, Adi, they wanted space. If you look at the map of Pakistan, they're just, I think, 350 kilometers across. It's not big westward. They wanted some space because they feel that India is their permanent enemy. So they wanted that space. Now, it's the issue that it has overtaken their entire psyche. This issue about helping the Taliban is an ISI project. If you read The Bear Trap, which was an excellent book, really, really excellent. The Taliban nexus in the ISI is now inherent within it.
Can't help it.
You can't help it. And this society is linked to the issues of the Taliban. Pakistan will break up in two if they do anything more, but they can't help themselves being what they are. So this is the issue about Pakistan. There are maybe 100 Pakistans in Pakistan, but there is one modern society of Pakistan, the ones who live in Lahore and Karachi or Islamabad, which is not in sync with the people who are living in Balochistan and the Pashtun areas of Pakistan.
Correct.
They're not in sync. They're not the same society. And even though they're the rulers, the political rulers of Pakistan, they cannot control this movement of the Taliban. And they will not be able to control it if Taliban starts ruling Afghanistan.
As a matter of fact, I kind of agree with you. I was just watching today some time ago. There was this interview that was conducted by the PBS people with Imran Khan. He was quite. He speaks very raw for a statement of what he claims to be, of a cadre that he claims to be, and he let it slip out that in case these guys do take power, it's going to be the end of peace in Pakistan as well. I don't think he intended to do that, but he did say these particular words. And it's a good read between the lines sort of an interview, sir. I mean, one must actually watch it because it actually shows the desperation that's something that you're bringing out very, very nicely. That it's
which is why they're trying to get the Chinese in.
Help.
They're trying to get the Chinese in, showing China that this is the way your belt of the road BRI project should go. And for that, China needs peace in Afghanistan. For China to extend beyond Afghanistan and create its road beyond that to the Central Asian republics and to Russia, she has to go through Afghanistan.
Yeah,
and for that, she needs peace in Afghanistan. Can China succeed in integrating a society of 5,000 years? I don't think so. Okay, Chinese are by nature very, very suspicious people.
Yeah,
they are very aggressive people. I don't think they have the wisdom to deal with these people. And I feel Talibs are playing them on, saying, "Dekhte hain kahan tak chalta hai." After all,
they don't have much to lose.
They don't have anything to lose. They've got everything to gain. They're going to gain some stuff, some money from China. China is going to start getting involved. After that, they will start blackmailing them. They have not allowed anybody to come in and create a society any different from what this society in Afghanistan is. They have not allowed them. And they will not allow them. And you simply cannot rule Afghanistan from Kabul. You have to go to Kandahar. You have to go to the north, the west, the east. You have to go all over. So it'll take. I don't know. I feel Chinese are very skeptical. They're merely putting their toes in to see where the story is. That's why they've called this delegation of Taliban. You see, there are 2-3 things I realized when I was dealing with China. One is China has huge insecurities.
Yes.
The first insecurity is the safety and security of Tibet. And therefore, the countries bordering Tibet must be neutralized or must be dominated. That's the first issue about China. That her first insecurity is the insecurity of Tibet. The second insecurity is the insecurity of the Uyghurs. And when she is talking to the Taliban of Afghanistan, this is the issue most in their mind. That the situation in their Xinjiang province and the Uyghurs should not get worse.
Correct.
Right? This is the story. This is the entire story. And Afghanistan sits on huge natural resources.
Yes.
So China is looking at utilizing, and Pakistan is hoping that something comes their way.
On the way, they'll be able to catch some droppings around the place.
And along with that, Pakistan, their dream is how do we screw India? So they will get into anything if they feel somewhere along the line India loses. That's the issue. They war game everything based on how do we screw India. Right? So this is one way here. Maybe China is also going to help us screw India. Maybe this will also happen. Maybe that will also happen. So these are all issues. Pakistan's whole system is how do we screw India.
Yeah, of course. Yes.
Everything else is a second story. But they don't realize that by creating this, they're actually creating a problem for themselves. It's a very, very large problem. We've seen it, Adi. When I was a young company commander in Uri in 1983, Pakistan army was opposite us. Pakistan was developing very quickly. Yeah. It had 8-9% GDP growth. Today it's finished. It's because seeing India, they can't see India get ahead. So they had to create a problem. Creating a problem meant creating a problem within themselves. So that the same people they pick up and throw into Kashmir would be the people who would create mayhem there as well as in Pakistan. And today they have a radicalized society. Yeah. They have people who will not accept anybody else. And they'll also not grow. So they will not take modern education. They will not take modern health. So these are issues, Adi. Three issues which are huge. And we have to, it's very interesting. Whatever is going to happen is very interesting.
Absolutely, sir. It's going to call for a lot of work from my side to make videos and talk to people about it. My focus has always been China, and these guys are making me shift the other direction.
But you will get very similar views here.
Yeah.
There'll be a coherence of views.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because we all feel similarly that they have created this problem and they're going to drown in it.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. So
and nothing going to change in Afghanistan.
Absolutely. So one thing that actually kind of, it amazes any logical human being. The world knows what Pakistan is doing. I mean, everyone has been talking about Pakistan's involvement in Taliban. Pakistan is safe haven for Taliban. Pakistan is this. Pakistan is that. It is something which is all over the world today. The question now is the 1-2 countries that can do something about it. One is India, of course, but at the moment, for us to get into that entire thing is going to take us away from our own focus of growth and development, which is what we want. The second country I feel that can do something about it is USA. Now that US has reduced its dependency on Pakistan with regards to the port and the land use and the thoroughfare and all that stuff, how do you see the relationship between the US and Pakistan changing in the coming some time?
Adi, for this, I'd request you to be a little realistic. If you were an American strategist and if you were thinking for the president of the US, what would you tell him? You'd say, this place is a problem. Keep off. Our future is a battle against China. We have to develop so that we don't get subdued by China. Okay? If you as a strategic analyst to Joe Biden would say, yeah, don't get involved here. There's no win situation here. It's a lose, lose and lose situation. Pakistan is on the periphery of a problem that actually does not matter to them. Supposing there is another 9/11 and it is again emanated or come out of Afghanistan, they'll hit Afghanistan again. They have the capability to do something which nobody else has. So if I were, guiding the strategic thought process of the voices in the US, and I was an American looking at American interests, Pakistan is a non-interest totally for them. How will that happen? Is that they will start ignoring Pakistan even more. Pakistan will not get the support, economic support it got. Pakistan thinks they've put in the Chinese there to change, but Chinese are very, very hard taskmasters, and they will take a lot before they give in. They're very transactional. The Chinese are very transactional. I remember visiting China, and my Chinese liaison officer met me, and he took me to the Tiananmen Square, and I asked him, who's the Maoist here? Because everything was going on. It was just before the Beijing Olympics in 2008. He said, the only man who's a Maoist is Mao, who was standing there. He said, he's the only last guy standing. The second issue he told me was that if you have milk, you're my mother. That's transactional. You give me something, I will give you the support. You don't give me something, I don't need it. Chinese are transactional that way, the US are not. So they give a lot of support to the Pakistanis without asking for something back. As far as this is concerned, China will not give anything to Pakistan. That steel relationship or that relationship of as high as the mountains is a transactional relationship, Adi. It's very transactional. And they also quite understand the dangers they're in.
Yeah.
They're in to take the real estate of Afghanistan. They're there to take the natural raw materials there. And they will just do that. And they'll have a deal with the Taliban. They'll give them money, carve out a place for themselves and take that. I think that's all they plan.
Interesting. So, I mean, Americans are going to have a very, very interesting role in making sure that the Pakistanis, in whatever they do, or if they don't do even, as you're saying, they're just going to ignore them. That is doing quite a bit, as a matter of fact. To ignore a rogue state is, I mean...
Yeah, but it's a state and it's on the periphery of a problem.
Yeah.
The main problem is China. You've got to develop yourself to take China on. You can't be... So that means a totally different set of skill sets, yeah.
Correct.
It's a different battle. The battle that they were fighting in Afghanistan and the battle that they will fight in maybe 2 decades later will be a totally different battle with China. There's a new book that has come out. It's written by Admiral Stavridis. It's called 2034, The Next World War, which is amazingly interesting because there they say how difficult that battle will be with China.
Interesting. They've actually said that. So, with regards coming back to the Pakistan and Taliban relationship, one can see certain fault lines. One can see certain cracks in terms of. Let me just take an example. The whole abduction of the the Afghanistan ambassador's daughter was also condemned by the Taliban. They said this is not okay. This sort of a thing should not happen, and they are fighting. They're at war with the establishment that the Afghan ambassador represents. One does see a certain fault line in a lot of places. What do you think are the major ones that you'd like to identify and keep a track of, sir?
Pakistan itself, that society is divided. There is a Pakistan living in Lahore. There is a Pakistan living in Islamabad. Different Pakistan in Karachi, and a totally different Pakistan in Balochistan and further on in the Pashtun areas. The Pashtun areas are almost fully radicalized. Right? Balochistan is fighting its own battles. But as the Punjabi Musliman starts getting radicalized, this radical battle for radical Islam starts coming closer to the liberal Musliman. So the fault line, the largest fault line, is that the rulers of Pakistan, who are the liberal Muslimans, of whom Imran Khan belongs because he paid lip service to Islam, but actually is a liberal Musliman. He's been done everything in his lifetime. So that's the first fault line. Liberal and radical Islam cannot live with each other. That's the first issue. Secondly, that the Pashtuns, who are dominant in the Tehrik-e-Afghanistan, the Taliban of Afghanistan, are not going to take orders from anybody. They will not. They have been independent from the beginning. And they will not take orders from anybody. If anything, the radical form of Islam will spread further. Even if Taliban was to take over the whole of Afghanistan, it's not going to be easy for Pakistan. It will break up their society.
True, sir. I think Pakistan is not reading its cards right. So the Pakistanis are kind of making promises for things that they don't own or can't control. And that is something which is very clearly coming out from what you're telling us, that they are trying to probably walk on a knife which has a very sharp edge, and there's another knife on top of the head as well. So if they slip, that knife will kind of come down and chop them into two. But
I agree with it.
What do you think are they actually promising the Chinese over there? Because it is quite evident that the Pakistanis are trying to get the Taliban into bed with the Chinese. Chinese, as you said, are very, very, cautious about these things. But I'm just talking about the Pakistani perspective, not the Chinese perspective. What do you think Pakistanis feel that they have to offer to the Chinese when they're trying to get these guys into Afghanistan?
First is they're doing what they did with Henry Kissinger and Nixon. Be the link between, when the Americans wanted to engage with China, Pakistan offered to be the link between China and America.
Yes.
So here they are the link between the Taliban and China. Okay. Second thing is that they have promised them the moon if the areas of under Taliban Afghanistan come, that is the natural resources. They said, we will give it to you carte blanche. There's no one else. That's the second issue. The natural resources of Afghanistan is what is at sale now by Pakistan to the Chinese. Third is, the Chinese are clear that without Pakistan help, they cannot move this BRI forward in Afghanistan.
That is true.
So it's a you scratch my back, I scratch yours situation. Only thing is the Chinese are not Americans. They are more transactional.
It'll be interesting that the Pakistanis have actually been able to sell the Chinese a space in Afghanistan, knowing that the Americans dominate the airspace.
Absolutely.
You can probably sell a gun to Gandhi, sir.
Bilkul, absolutely. That's what they're doing.
So
the Chinese, if you notice, have been very skeptical.
Yeah.
They are not getting into bed so quickly.
Yeah.
And they are taking certain, asking for certain kind of support, but only to protect their Xinjiang province and the Uyghur problem.
That is very interesting that you say that, because in the past sometime there was a news about base that the Chinese have actually built up in the Badkhashan area in their deal with Tajikistan. It's about 12 kilometers from the Tajik-Afghan border. So they're probably doing something over there to kind of protect their own space.
Yeah.
But these ideologies are like viruses. So I'm sure you'll agree with me that
Absolutely.
they don't
Absolutely.
respect orders.
No, they don't.
So my last question.
Pashtuns first.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Please, sir.
No, they're Pashtuns first. That part has to be clear.
True.
Pakistan just might find itself losing Pakhtunistan.
That's a large part.
Very large part.
And they, as it is, call it Greater Afghanistan. So even the Taliban doesn't recognize it.
I started this by telling you the Durand line.
Yeah.
This was the reason that the Pashtuns don't recognize the Durand line.
Correct, sir. Correct. So what about India? That's my final question to you. To Pakistan's dismay, I'm going to kind of say this very clearly. We don't have investment there. We have some aid that we had given, which is something that a lot of countries do for each other. So we've kind of not lost anything as per se. And if the Taliban needed to destroy those dams and those buildings, they would have done it by now. What stops them from firing an RPG into a dam and, breaking one wall somewhere here and there or something like that? They've not done it because they also very clearly know, it is very clearly mentioned that when there's no infrastructure, what the hell do you have to rule in that place? You don't have anything.
Absolutely.
So what do you think now India is trying to do in this entire broth, if I may put it, broth of chefs? So they're not chefs cooking the broth. I think all the chefs are inside the broth in this particular case. So what do you think is India's game in this entire thing? We've heard some talks happening with the Taliban. We've heard quite a bit of this thing happening, to and fro happening from India's side. So where do you see this thing going?
As far as I'm concerned, I would look at it very clearly that our stake lies in an Afghanistan that is not against us. Right? Afghanistan and India have been friends for centuries.
Mm-hmm.
Our stake lies in being friends with them. That if the Afghans do get this Taliban government, then it becomes a government of Afghanistan. We must interact with them, which is why we must talk to them now. No one's a pariah in the world of international relations. Okay. The Americans have been speaking to the Taliban, Afghan Taliban, since 2018. In Qatar, in Saudi Arabia, there's simply no reason why we shouldn't be speaking to them.
That's true. Mm-hmm.
Right. Third is hope for the best, because international relations is a transactional relationship.
Become like the Chinese.
No, we have to. It is transactional.
That's
international relations is largely transactional.
That's true, sir.
And fourth is we've been friends for centuries. There's simply no reason why we shouldn't be friends now. We should not interpret Afghanistan through Pakistan's eyes.
I think that's the punchline for the day, sir.
Absolutely.
I'm going to take that and I'm going to steal that and use it somewhere else as well with your permission.
By all means.
Because we must never. And this is something that I mentioned in the beginning, and I think you've really closed the entire discussion with this very right thing, that there is a lot of information which is being put out there for the world to believe a certain narrative that probably the Pakistanis, who are pretty good at this, backed by the Chinese, who are pretty much the masters of information warfare, it's probably being done to hit India, it's probably being done to hit the US, it's probably being done to create a whole lot of things. Only time will tell. So this has been a very interesting discussion. I think you brought out the relationship between Taliban and Pakistan as bare as bones, because there is a shroud of, I won't call it confusion, but I'd call it a mystery which surrounds this relationship, because both hate each other, but both don't have a choice with regards to what they want in their individual arena. Absolutely, and the factor that you said that the Pakistanis are now so far entrenched in their own thought process that changing that entire thing is going to be, that's like asking Taliban to stop killing, it's not going to happen. So I guess, General Shokin sir, you've brought this point out very, very well. This has not been said in a lot of spaces where the Afghanistan problem is being discussed, it's more or less about the US involvement and the Chinese getting in the bed and stuff like that. Nobody's actually spoken about the core of this problem, which is Pakistan and Taliban. And thank you so much, sir, for pointing out certain points which will help us understand this thing better.
Pleasure, Adi. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Wish you all. Thank you for calling me, and I had a great time. Thank you.
Till next time, sir. Jai Hind.